right, welcome into SportsBit Betting Insight today, Monday, March 28th. Paulie and Teddy. Big game breakdown today will be OKC and the Raptors, Lakers and the Jazz, and the Celtics and the Clippers. Deep dive. Today we start our division previews in Major League Baseball. AL West coming up, and the play of the day. We start with bad beats and bad bets. Bad beats first. How about Virginia money line, and how about that prop we talked about last week? Over 1.5 one seeds to make the Final Four. Yes, $1.80. What the hell happened? Virginia up 15 with 10 minutes. Here comes a 25-4 run by Syracuse, Teddy.
Yeah, and honestly, it was a complete meltdown for the Cavaliers, and Syracuse hit a bunch of shots. But a team like Virginia, a team that's a veteran squad, they play great defense, they're battle-tested, they're supposed to be a little bit tougher than they were during that Syracuse run. It was about 10 minutes of real time from the Orange being completely out of it to the Orange being completely in control. And once Syracuse went on that run, man, the body language was horrible for Virginia. And Brogdon, I mean, what are you, 2 of 14 from the floor in that game, threw a terrible pass to Devin Hall for the potential game-tying three. Hall ended up taking a bad shot because of it. Brogdon got eaten for lunch by Malachi Richardson. Let's call it what it is. Virginia choked it away. That being said, I don't like to rip these kids too much. Chris Webber, great pro, he choked the title away. Derrick Rose, great pro, he choked the title away. Brogdon, he's not in the range of those two guys as an NBA guy, but certainly you wouldn't expect this type of a game from the Cavs superstar to have any kind of an impact down the line. They just, they fell apart.
Sure did. I mean, look at this graphic, too. Here's Syracuse, their defense in the final 7 minutes against Gonzaga. They held them to 1 field goal and 5 points the final 7 minutes. And Virginia, 1 field goal and 4 points. Virginia fell into their trap. They wanted to speed them up and they pressed them, but Virginia tried to score off the press and by pushing the ball instead of just getting it past half court and going to their half court offense, which was so successful for the first 30 minutes, and then the wheels just came off. And as far as Syracuse, which it might be the worst Final Four team I can remember, they shouldn't have been in the tournament to begin with, and they gave them a 10 seed. They lost 5 of their final 6 games. They got off to a slow start without Boeheim, and that's your problem because he cheated, and they were rewarded somehow by the committee for that. They lost to St. John's, and they only won 3 road games the whole season. They get the gift, the miracle, as Michigan State loses early, and then they're down 9 with 6 minutes against Gonzaga and down 15 with 10 minutes. And here they are, 2 wins away. And on January 13th, here in Las Vegas at the Westgate, they were 1,000-1 to win it all. Only 4 people bet that. And they were, they were a long shot too going into the tournament, Teddy.
Yeah, 300-1 to win going into the tournament, 30-1 to come out of the Midwest. Again, these are Westgate numbers. If you shopped around, you may well have found something better than that. But you talked about that end game defense against Gonzaga, where they gave up the 1 field goal. That came on a tip-in after a miss. So they literally, in the last 2 games, have allowed their opponents to hit like 1 shot over the final 7 minutes of the game. 9 points allowed in 2 games over a 14-minute span down the stretch. I'll give them credit, Paul. You say they're the worst Final Four team ever? I mean, maybe going into the tournament, but people said that about VCU and George Mason and the other double-digit seeds that have gotten there over the course of the past decade. Syracuse earned this. I mean, Virginia choked it away, but Syracuse earned it. And whatever they were 3 weeks ago, they're not anymore.
Yeah, Gonzaga certainly choked it away as well. Time for bad bets. How about the Mavs? What happened? Give up 133 points to the Kings.
Yeah, and this race for the 8th seed in the West between Utah, Houston, and Dallas is hilarious right now, Paul, because it really looks like 2 of the 3 teams don't want it.
Yeah.
They don't want to get embarrassed by San Antonio or Golden State in the first round. One of them's going to get there. But as of late, it seems like the Mavs want it less than the Rockets. But when you have a veteran team that isn't really going all out to make the postseason, boy, that's a bet against squad down the stretch.
And you don't lay huge numbers in the NBA, Teddy. A lot of people did that with the Warriors last night and made a mistake.
I'm a little bit surprised at how much money Golden State took because you just can't lay 22 in an NBA game. Ever. Regardless of the circumstance. I mean, Klay Thompson goes off for 40, and the Warriors still never led by more than 19. Philly's on the second night of back-to-back. Doesn't matter. Even the crappiest NBA players, they're still NBA players. They could still score baskets and get stops and get rebounds. And, of course, a team like Philly, they're not going to get the Warriors' full attention. It's one of those, I'm kicking myself. I feel like I should have had a big bet on Philadelphia yesterday, and I didn't. But the bottom line is, if you are thinking about laying 20 plus in an NBA game, maybe you move on and find something else to bet.
Believe it or not, we got college basketball today, and it's right here in Las Vegas. I can't believe all 4 games are on television. It's the Vegas 16 tournament, now knocked down to Vegas 8 because they couldn't find teams from big conferences to join and accept this. And, a day game at Mandalay Bay at noon. I mean, I can't imagine anyone's going to this, Teddy.
Well, look, I've been in the Mandalay Bay Event Center. Hell, I was even there for a Bob Seger concert a couple of years ago. Check him out right here. But who is going to show up to watch a tournament on a weekday afternoon when the big draw of this tournament is that these kids get to go hang out in Vegas for a couple of days? I don't know if anybody is interested in basketball. Look at the last game for these teams. Tennessee Tech last played on March 2nd. Mm-hmm. Towson State March 5th. Oakland March 7th. East Tennessee State March 7th. We're talking about teams that have been off for basically 3 weeks. And all of them are here because they lost their last game. No big dance, no NIT. They're all here because they got bounced out of their conference tournaments. And, let's go to Vegas. All the power conference schools declined. This is one of those things, nice idea, but maybe you want to do it over Thanksgiving as opposed to at the end of March. This Vegas 16, which has become the Vegas 8, has the feel of a Vegas one-and-done type tournament. Best of luck for those of you wagering on it. I don't have a whole lot of interest.
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster. And one thing, too, Coach K, we got you, buddy. You got to tell the truth. In this day and age, everything's on tape. Everything's out there. Social media should have told the truth. There's no way Dylan Brooks was going to make that up, and it came back to bite Coach K.
It sure did. And it's embarrassing for Coach K to see him, actually caught in a lie where you can hear the enhanced audio. And you're like, come on, dude. This is 2016, and we see it particularly among, guys of my generation, guys the generation up, like Coach K. They don't get everything is on film now. Everything is recorded. If you're out of your house, you can expect that you're on camera or getting recorded somewhere. And especially if you're a high-profile guy like K, man, you can't lie. Stop lying to me. Mad you did it. Not that I had a ton of respect for the guy anyway. Great recruiter. But as a basketball coach, man, when you think about the talent that Duke's teams have had over the last 30 years, they won some national titles. Frankly, they probably should have won some more.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, too. And don't worry about what Brooks is doing. Worry about Grayson Allen tripping guys 3-4 times during the entire season. Ridiculous. Big game breakdown coming up next, and then the NL West preview. It's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Welcome back on SportsBit. Reminder, tomorrow, NL West. Today, AL West. One correction there. Time for big game breakdown. Let's start in the association. OKC and the Raptors. OKC 3, 2-11 on the road. It's actually round 3 between Westbrook and Kyle Lowry. The Raptors won at OKC earlier in the season. They went head-to-head the All-Star game in Toronto. But here's this battle, and look at this graph, the real plus-minus. Curry leads the way, 9.7. Kawhi Leonard, 9.3. Westbrook, 8.6. Draymond Green, 8.5. LeBron, 8.3. And Kyle Lowry, 7.4. A great matchup between these two guys. The battle at the point. But, Teddy, it begs the question, what does Billy Donovan do the rest of the season? Because they're locked into that 3 seed.
I mean, they really are locked into that 3. It'd be very shocking for OKC. And they're not going up, and they would have to lose every game for them to go down. And this is a spot where they're going to be in the first game of back-to-backs. So here's Billy Donovan with some coaching that he's going to have to do, some decisions he's going to have to make. Will he play it on the road against this caliber of foe? Like, hey, we want to go, we want to win, or is it like, we've done what we've wanted to accomplish during the regular season, and now we're going to take it a little bit easy. That being said, you think the Raptors are only 2.5 back behind Cleveland. they're still very much alive for the East top seed. But I've seen about 10 different quotes from Dwayne Casey saying he doesn't care about the number one seed. He'd rather sit banged up guys than play them. And we saw that in reality when he sat Lowry at Boston last week. A situation where he easily could have said, hey, that was a spot where they were right on Cleveland's heels. I don't know the Raptors are particularly determined about moving up in the standings any more than OKC is.
Yep, good points there. Game number 2, Lakers on the road to take on the Jazz. Final game in Utah for Kobe in Salt Lake City. Projected line, Jazz 11, 193. Since Kobe's announced his retirement, it's been a thumbs up for over bettors. But the farewell tour, if you look at this graphic, the first 19 last games, over-under, 13-6, net over 156, more than 8 per game, shots per 48, 28.2. You prorate that for a full season. I mean, look at this. It's right there with Cousins and Curry. Teddy, he's still shooting like he's an elite player.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. I mean, we're talking about one of the least efficient offensive players in the league. He's shooting less than 36% from the floor. He's shooting less than 28% from three-point range. And when he's, again, prorated stats, shooting it and chucking it up there like he's DeMarcus Cousins or Steph Curry, who are number 1 or 2 in the NBA in shot attempts, it's a little bit, I guess it's what the fans want to see. Kobe's getting the love that he probably hasn't gotten at any point in his career. And it's worth noting that despite all of Kobe's jacks, these games are flying over the total, the Lakers still 9-10 against the spread in those 19 ball games. Again, these are Kobe's last visit to any particular city.
Yep.
So the question is it different tonight, Paul? Because the only road games that fit the pattern so far this month, at Denver, at Phoenix, that's 2 teams that A, aren't playing a lot of defense, and B, don't care about the scoreboard. Utah, they're tied with Houston for the 8th seed right now, and the Jazz play defense.
Sure do.
Lots of defense. Good defense. So maybe, I understand this over trend has been strong. Tonight's a night that I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to try to finish the entire season and play all the games. There is a back-to-back coming up with the Clippers, but other than that, I think he'll try to play every game the rest of the way, and that certainly hurts because 13 straight unders when he sits out. Final game, Celtics and the Clippers in Los Angeles. Clippers 3, 209 the total, and here it is, the announcement yesterday. Blake Griffin's coming back, supposed to play April 3rd against the Wizards, but what does this mean for the chemistry and the locker room, Teddy? Because remember, you punched out a team employee to get suspended, and all this talk about we're better without him. They get up to a great start. They've really been struggling as of late, though, so you wonder what the chemistry is going to be like now that he's back.
I'm not worried about the chemistry for the Clips at all. And really, if you read some of the quotes coming out of post-practice from LA, you saw one positive comment after the next from the players. Here's from Doc Rivers right here. Griffin had no endurance as far as his wind, but as far as playing basketball, he looked terrific. We figure we have 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever more days before he comes back on the floor. And I don't know if you can get him in condition to play 35 minutes or 30 minutes right away. My guess is right now we're going to start him. The question, more importantly, is not the starting. It's how many minutes in a row can he play? Mm-hmm. If it went by yesterday, it'd be 3. So Griffin clearly has some conditioning to do. And with LA's rotation about to change, significantly, you wonder, is this a cycle to rest Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan and then pick up the pace again when Griffin's on the floor? The Clips, like OKC's pretty well locked into the 3. The Clips are pretty well locked into the 4. This team cannot move up to the 3. They're not going to fall down to the 5. And that's definitely something in terms of late season motivation for the Clips. Much more important to get Griffin on the court and get into a rhythm than it is to be winning games and covering point spreads right about now. But what about the Celtics, Paul? They're a team with some issues right now, too.
I'm worried. I know the loss of Crowder was big, but, big deal about the winning streak. The wins are against the 76ers, the Magic, the Suns, and they beat the Raptors without Lowry. And a guy who's really struggled, you look at this graphic, is Marcus Smart post-All-Star break. Field goal percentage, 31%. Three-point percentage, 19%. He's killing them, and I love Brad Stevens. But this team is really struggling now. We'll see if they continue this West Coast road trip, if they can snap out of it.
Well, even when they won at Phoenix on Saturday,
blew a big lead.
They were up 20. They did their best to blow that lead.
Yep.
They had more turnovers and assists. And if it wasn't for Evan Turner's great block against Devin Booker, they might well have lost that game. So I understand that, Boston's a team that we've liked a lot all year. And Crowder's going to be back before the playoffs. But right now, Celtics, Clippers, I don't know if I want either one of these two teams tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. AL West preview up next and the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Welcome back on SportsBit. Here we go. We start our division previews. AL West up first. The Astros. Let's start there. They had the Royals beat. They blew that series. They should have been in the ALCS. Great story. Snuck up on a lot of people. But, Teddy, this season, can you make money betting on the Astros?
And to be honest, Paulie, I don't think you can. I mean, this team has taken money hand over fist, certainly when it comes to winning the division. They were plus 160. I saw them. I was pricing them around yesterday. I saw plus 105. I saw minus 110. So there's been nothing but Astros money coming in to win the division. Now, this is a team that won 51, 55, 56, and then 70 games from 2011 to 2012. Last year, they're one win away from reaching the ALDS, right? They got bounced early in the postseason. They won one series. They won one game, but not another series. So when a team that wins 70 games or less for 4 straight years suddenly morphs into a legit World Series contender, in theory, bettors are supposed to be able to make some serious money with that team. But that wasn't the case last year. In fact, if you bet the Astros every game last year, you lost money. If you bet them in the postseason in every game, you lost money. Even with all that success, and the hype on Houston's 10 times greater now than it was last year, I think it's going to be hard to make money with Houston. I really do.
Okay, next up, the Angels. They were an incredible 35-17 in one-run games last year. They caught all the breaks, and they still missed the playoffs. Teddy, what does that mean for the Angels this season?
And boy, they've been taking nothing but under money. Here in Vegas, we saw that 81.5 is the opener at CG. That got bet down to 81 with the under minus 145. At the Westgate, it's already down to 79.5. There's 79s out there. In terms of odds to win the division, nothing. It just keeps going up, up, up. I've seen as high as plus 800 to win the division.
Wow.
And when you go 35-17 in one-run games, and A, you're not that good, and B, you end up with 80, you end up making a couple units of profit, you end up winning 85 games. In the offseason, you replace the left side of your infield. That's a bonus, but so help me. Mike Trout's as good as any player in the majors. The rest of this lineup isn't very good.
Stinks.
And, look at Pujols. 307 on-base percentage last year. That's embarrassing. Some of the days, or many days, the pop of Albert Pujols blowing a bubble is louder than what's coming out of his bat.
To the A's, and if you bet on this team last year, you got buried. They cost bettors a lot of money. They were 29th out of 30 teams. That you lost almost 30 units if you were betting on the A's. It's another bad lineup. What do we expect out of them?
And the A's are so interesting right now because, Billy Beane was a genius for a decade plus. And he made that one stupid deal with trading Cespedes away when Oakland was in position to make they were in position to win the division that year.
Huge choke job.
And it fell apart for them. They haven't been the same since. It was one move too many. Now, he made a ton of moves, Billy Beane, this past offseason. I mean, a ton of moves. This is a very revamped roster, but when you look at the roster when all's said and done, things used to be real comfortable for this guy in Oakland, and now he's somewhat on the hot seat. And the A's, in the National League, there's 6 or 7 bad teams. So when the bad teams play each other, they got a chance for wins. In the American League, you got 12 of the 15 teams that you can consider legit playoff contenders. You got Tampa's no bottom feeder. They're lined right now as an 81 win team. You have Minnesota with some of the best young prospects in the game, and then you have Oakland. So on paper, they might be weaker than every team in the league, and that's not a team I'm looking to bet over the total.
All right, how about the Seattle Mariners? One of the most disappointing teams last season. New GM, new manager. What does that mean for Seattle?
Yeah, I mean Scott Service is a really an interesting choice as a manager. He's a former major league player, but his previous experience has been all in the front office. First in Texas, then in L.A., and of course he's DePoto's buddy, the new GM, having worked under him in L.A. It's something of a curious hire. But this team last year, what made Seattle so disappointing? I mean, a lot of things. Their bullpen wasn't as good as expected. Their starting pitching was hit and miss. Or their lineup wasn't as good as expected. Their starting pitching was hit and miss. But more than anything else, it was their freaking bullpen. The bullpen lost 36 games last year, second most in the majors. Their ERA went up by more than a run and a half from the previous year. And everything they did this past offseason, or many of the moves DePoto made, all about getting this bullpen back in order. There were many days last year when it was hard to take the Mariners' bullpen seriously. This year, at least on paper, it looks to be a vastly improved unit.
And we finished it off with the Texas Rangers, the single best bet last year. You made almost 30 units betting on the Rangers every day. Lineups loaded, and they really took off when they acquired Hamels, Teddy.
Yeah, and remember, this team started 8-16 in their first 24 games last year. So they went 80-58 from mid-May on. The betting markets didn't and don't respect the fact the Rangers finished the campaign with only a plus 18 run differential. The old Pythagorean theorem. That was nearly 100 runs worse than the second placed Astros. And of course, Houston's got all the young players. Texas got all the old guys. Guess what? I'll take my chance with Adrian Beltre and Prince Fielder and Josh Hamilton and Sin-Shu Chu. And you look at this rotation. Looks rock solid on paper. You look at the bullpen, man, they got some big arms, some fireballers coming out of the pen. Now, of course, we got Cole Hamels, as you mentioned. He got traded to Contender, and he also gets all these road games in West Coast ballparks. That suits his style well. I'm pretty bullish on the Rangers going into this season, Paul.
All right, yes, and that leads us to the play of the day. A couple weeks ago, 3-1-1, followed by a 4-1 week and 2-3 last week with those lineup shenanigans in the NBA. A couple of the losers there, and we lost the Kansas game by one basket, the total. What are we doing here with the play of the day?
82.5 wins for Texas. This team has not been a sexy choice here in the preseason or in the exhibition campaign. And look, they won the AL West last year with 88 wins. I told you I don't like the Angels. I told you I don't like the A's. I'm not in love with Seattle. And Houston is a little bit overvalued. Okay, they only outscored their opponents by 11 runs. Big deal. A ton of things went wrong for this team last year in terms of injuries, particularly the pitching staff. And the Wandy Rodriguez went wrong, and the Giovanni Gallardo experiment went wrong, and Derek Holland wasn't healthy, and on down the line. This team's healthier. I think they're loaded. Let's take Texas over 82.5 wins. That's the play of the day, and that's one, Paul, we're not going to be able to get graded on until October.
Excellent job. Thanks for watching SportsBit. Thanks for the spike in the views, and tell all your friends. We'll see you right back here on Tuesday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.